Less than 1 minute ago, a brutal message arrived at Buckingham Palace. This communication shattered the fragile silence surrounding King Charles and his estranged con. Prince Harry has officially rejected the King's offer of a royal residence. He chose instead to stay at Althorp. This is the ancestral home and final resting place of Princess Diana. Choosing the ghost of Diana over the palace of the King is a strategic maneuver. It weaponizes the memory of a dead mother against a father battling a serious illness. Is this the final strike against the firm, or the desperate cry of a son lost in his own shadow? Why has Harry chosen the grounds of Althorp? Step into the darkness of this unfolding family tragedy as we reveal the truth behind the message that broke the King's silence. Prince Harry was once the ultimate asset of the British crown. He was a combat-tested veteran who transformed personal grief into the global phenomenon of the Invictus Games. But the glitter of the royal icon hid deep behavioral cracks that senior courtiers began documenting long before the 2020 exit. The truth is revealed in the psychological shift that occurred during the 2018 royal wedding. Witnesses inside St. George's Chapel saw a look of absolute defiance in the prince's eyes. This was the moment the institution realized Harry was no longer operating as a subordinate. The evidence lies in the strategic weaponization of Princess Diana's legacy. He did not merely want to honor his mother, he wanted to dismantle the very protocols his father spent 70 years preparing to uphold. This was the first institutional fracture. Harry began to view his inheritance as a prison and his father as the primary jailer. The current crisis was triggered by a brutal refusal that occurred less than 1 week ago. King Charles offered his son a secure private suite at St. James's Palace for his recent London visit. This was a paternal olive branch intended to provide safety during a high-stakes return. Harry's response was a calculated strike. He rejected the King's sanctuary. He chose to stay at Althorp House instead. This is the ancestral Spencer estate and the final resting place of Princess Diana. Staying at Althorp is a territorial declaration of war. By choosing the Spencer stronghold over a royal residence, Harry is physically aligning with his mother's ghost while publicly shaming the Windsor establishment. Staying at Diana's grave is a brutal message to the King. It tells Charles that Harry belongs to the Spencer bloodline, not the Windsor crown. This act of symbolic occupation serves as the catalyst for the palace's most aggressive counter-operation. The evidence of this war is found in a physical paper trail of Defiance. Following the King's cancer diagnosis in February 2024, Harry flew to London for a 12-minute meeting. The media celebrated a reunion, but legal records tell a story of cold calculation. Within 24 hours of that meeting, the Prince's legal team filed an urgent update to his lawsuit against the UK government for taxpayer-funded security. Harry is using his presence in the United Kingdom as a bargaining chip for state-funded protection. He refuses to participate in royal life unless he is granted the same security status as a working monarch. Senior courtiers describe this demand as institutional blackmail. Acknowledging this truth would admit that the King's son is suing the King's government while the King battles for his life. The Crown argues that royal status is a matter of duty, not a birthright for hire. The paradox becomes sharper when examining the interference of the Prince of Wales. Prince William has emerged as the silent enforcer of the monarchy. He views his brother as a strategic liability to the throne's future. An undisclosed internal memo sent from Kensington Palace to Buckingham Palace changed the course of the reconciliation. This confidential briefing contained exactly 11 words: "The stability of the crown cannot be sacrificed for paternal sentiment." William has authorized a cordon sanitaire around the King. He ensures that Harry's demands never reach the monarch's private sick room without being vetted by institutional loyalists. Harry's messages have become increasingly brutal because he is shouting at a wall of silence. The Prince of Wales believes any concession would set a constitutional precedent that weakens the sovereign's authority. The future king has already assumed the role of protector, effectively amputating the Duke of Sussex from the royal succession's strategic planning. The psychological cost is the most devastating layer. Beyond legal filings lies a human void involving Archie and Lilibet. Harry has reportedly linked the safety of the children to his security demands. This implies the king will never meet them in person unless state-funded protection is granted. King Charles is facing his own mortality while his grandchildren are being used as collateral in a legal battle. The king has requested video calls, but evidence suggests these are blocked by time zone disputes or security concerns from the Montecito household. Harry is not just fighting for safety. He is erasing the king's right to be a grandfather. Choosing Althorp as a home base reminds the king that Harry controls the past through Diana and the future through Archie. The king is trapped between a father's longing and a monarch's duty. The king's silence is no longer a choice. It is a symptom of a heart being systematically broken by the son he once called his darling boy. The final fracture is now visible to the entire royal household. Harry's message was a brutal ultimatum. He will only return to the family on his own terms. He wants the status of a prince with the freedom of a celebrity. He wants the protection of the state without the responsibility of the crown. The king cannot grant these wishes without breaking constitutional law. Harry is asking for the impossible to justify his continued absence. He stays at Althorp to remind the world of his mother's tragedy. He uses her ghost to punish his father's present. The Spencer bloodline has become a weapon against the Windsor succession. The institution of the monarchy is built on mystery, but Harry is selling that mystery to the highest bidder. The palace has moved to a permanent removal strategy. The king has realized that Harry is no longer a son to be saved, but a crisis to be managed. The response from the crown will be final. The heart of the king is broken, but the duty of the king remains absolute. Harry chose Althorp. Charles has chosen the throne. The immediate consequence of this brutal message is visible in the king's deteriorating vitality. Palace insiders confirm that emotional stress has become the primary obstacle to the king's recovery. Charles is not merely fighting a biological disease, he is navigating a psychological siege. Every legal filing and every public ultimatum from California acts as a direct assault on the king's peace. The result is a silent but total shift in power. The sealed succession decree is no longer a theoretical contingency. It is a live administrative operation. William has been granted expanded authority to manage the family's private assets and internal discipline. This effectively makes the Prince of Wales the king's proxy in all matters involving the Duke of Sussex. This is the institutional amputation. The firm has reached a consensus that the Sussex conflict cannot be resolved through dialogue. It must be managed through isolation. Harry's name has been systematically moved to the non-working category in all state-level documentation. This is not a mere change of status. It is the total removal of his constitutional relevance. If a national crisis occurred today, Harry would have no seat at the council table. He remains a prince by blood, but he has become a ghost in the machinery of the state. The long-term fallout involves the permanent restructuring of the royal household. The brutal message has forced the king to realize that his reign must be a bridge to William's future, rather than a reconciliation with Harry's past. The Prince of Wales has adopted a zero-access policy. He has blocked the Duke from using any royal apartments or receiving palace-funded security. This is a tactical defense of the throne's dignity. The king's silence is the final verdict. Charles has stopped defending Harry to the senior courtiers. He has allowed the institution to treat his younger son as a foreign entity. The tragedy of this legacy is that Harry sought freedom, but he found irrelevance. By attacking the monarchy, he has destroyed the source of his own global influence. Without the Windsor brand, The Duke of Sussex is a celebrity in an overcrowded market, struggling to maintain the attention he once received by birthright. The brutal message was intended to force a concession, but it has only accelerated his own erasure from the royal history books. There is a profound human lesson in this wreckage. It is the lesson of duty versus ego. The monarchy survives because its members sacrifice their personal desires for the continuity of the state. Harry's struggle is the extreme version of a modern identity crisis, the desire to be a rebel while clinging to the privileges of the establishment. The king's heartbreak is the heartbreak of every parent who watches a child choose a path of self-destruction. Charles wanted a son to support his reign. He received a son who sues his government. The value of this investigation lies in understanding that the crown cannot be a family business and a private sanctuary at the same time. Every concession made to Harry is a risk to the stability of the United Kingdom. The brutal message confirms that the bond is not just broken, it has been scorched by the fires of litigation and public grievance. This story connects to the universal experience of betrayal and the burden of pride. We all recognize the pain of an unfinished conversation and the danger of words that cannot be taken back. The prince's choice to stay at Althorp was a sensory detail designed to provoke a reaction, but it only proved his isolation. He stands on an island of Spencer history while the Windsor future moves forward without him. The king remains behind the palace walls, surrounded by a family that chose to stay and serve. The contrast is absolute. The stakes are no longer about a single visit to London. They are about the survival of the institution in the 21st century. A monarchy that bends to the whims of a celebrity prince is a monarchy that invites its own collapse. Charles has understood this truth at a devastating personal cost. He has chosen the institution over his darling boy, because the king's primary loyalty is to the people, not to his own emotions. Now consider the perspective of a detective of truth. If you held the letter Harry sent to Charles, would you see it as a cry for help or a weapon for negotiation? The evidence suggests that the message was designed to create a constitutional shockwave. It was a tactical strike, timed for a moment of royal vulnerability. We must ask ourselves, what is the cost of such a choice? Harry has gained his independence, but he has lost his father's trust and his brother's respect. He has exchanged a lifetime of service for a season of headlines. As we look at the empty chair at the royal table, the question remains for the audience: who is the true victim in this tragedy? Is it the prince who felt abandoned, or the king who was betrayed? The brutal message was Harry's final attempt to control the narrative. But the narrative of the crown is written in centuries, not in news cycles. The Duke of Sussex has sent his message, and the king has responded with the one thing Harry cannot defeat: the absolute silence of the throne. This is the reality of the 2026 royal landscape. The family is divided by 5,000 miles and 30 years of unresolved trauma. The heartbreaking nature of this disclosure is the realization that there is no path back to 2018. The Spencer bloodline and the Windsor crown have collided, and the fragments are scattered across the Atlantic. We are witnessing the final chapter of a son's rebellion, and the cold, necessary response of a sovereign. The institution of the monarchy is a cold machine, and it has finally ground the relationship between Charles and Harry into the dust of history. The brutal message was not the start of a conversation. It was the closing of a door. The king's heart is broken, but his signature on the state papers is firm. The duty remains. The crown stands. The son is gone. We see the reflection of every broken family in this battle of pride versus duty. But the truth is even more shocking when the titles are stripped away. This is a father fighting for his life and a son fighting for his ego. If you were Prince Harry standing on the lonely island at Althorp, Would you feel the triumph of independence or the crushing weight of isolation if you were King Charles reading a legal ultimatum while undergoing chemotherapy? Would you find the strength to forgive or the resolve to protect your legacy? The real paradox is that Harry claims to hate the royal fishbowl, yet he uses the most private family wounds to fuel his global brand. Royal life is not a Netflix show you can cancel when the plot gets difficult. It is a life sentence of service. We must ask ourselves at what point a search for freedom becomes a campaign of cruelty. But that is not all. The investigation reaches its final and most devastating revelation. After the legal filings, the secret memos, and the territorial disputes at Diana's grave, the most brutal message Harry ever sent to King Charles was not in a letter. It is the silence of the grandchildren. It is the 5,000 miles of physical and emotional distance Harry has weaponized as a tool of negotiation. The truth is that the greatest asset Harry is squandering isn't his status or his wealth. It is time. King Charles is 76 years old and battling cancer. Every day Harry spends at Althorp instead of his father's side is a day that can never be reclaimed. Evidence doesn't lie. Harry has traded the permanence of the crown for the fleeting attention of the news cycle. He chose the ghost of his mother over the reality of his father. If time could be rewound to 2018, would Harry choose this path of litigation and grievance again? Or was this tragedy inevitable the moment he decided to burn the bridge to the throne? If you believe the truth must be heard and the stability of the crown is paramount, subscribe and join us as we peel back the layers of the House of Windsor. Protect the legacy. Listen to the evidence. Tell us in the comments. Do you stand with the absolute duty of King Charles? Or do you believe Harry's pain justifies his brutal message? The court of public opinion is in session. We will see you in the next investigation. The crown stands. The truth remains. This case is closed.